Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to episode 178 of Love at First Scent, with me, Persolaise, coming to you live from YouTube. As always, please consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't already done so. Please click on the little bell to get notifications of new videos. I am looking down here onto the tablet to make sure that everything is coming through loud and clear, which it seems to be. Looking forward to this one is the first comment, which goes to A to Z in one. For those of you watching live, thank you very much for sticking around. If for those of you watching the recording, if you're interested, we just finished one video where I reviewed the new Tom Ford Tuberose New. So if you would like to get the experience of watching the whole thing live as though it were really happening, then you need to search for the Tom Ford video, or I will try to link to it somewhere here. And also I should say, in the video description you will find a link to my page on the Ko-fi website to find out how you can support my work on Ko-fi. Any help along those lines is always much appreciated. Druba saying, I made it to this one, excited. Keith, not late for this one. No, you're not. You're very welcome. Angela, hi there, everyone, again. Yay, I love this one, says Gina. Ah, so you've tried it. I genuinely haven't tried this one. Hello again, says David. Curious if this is reminiscent of a choral creation, says Druba. What do you think? Hello again. I missed a few recent episodes, so glad to be here now, says Joanna. Waiting for my turn at the dermatologist, says Lalwa. Oh, okay. I hope it all goes well. That's a bit late, isn't it, to be going? Well, mind you, I forget where you're in the Middle East, right? So, well, I suppose it doesn't matter. You can go to see the dermatologist anytime, can't you? Right. So, for this episode, we're going to be smelling, and this is a genuine, is it going to be Love at First Scent or not? Because I have not unsealed this. This is the new Orpheon from Diptyque. So let's start unwrapping. Let's do some nice crunchy noise just to mess the sound system up. Now, Diptyque, finally at a live session, says Terry Smiles. You're very welcome. Diptyque keep going, don't they? I mean, it's funny because they do have some really good perfumes, some exceptionally beautiful candles, it has to be said. But I think maybe it's because of that a lot of people out there still see them as just a candle brand, even though they could legitimately claim to being the very first niche brand. I know that honor very often goes to l'artisan parfumeur, but you know, actually these guys were around before them. I always open from the bottom, says David. Oh, okay. A good old Diptyque, a dependable brand, says A to Z in one. Right, let's do this gently. So, I know nothing about what this is meant to be. I just know that the perfumer is Olivier Pescheux. In fact, as soon as I said that, I thought, gosh, have I got that right? I will check it out because I have got a very lengthy press release. I don't intend on reading it all to you. So there you go. Always very effective and enjoyable to open packaging from Diptyque. Tissue paper is always welcome, isn't it? This is one of their EDPs, okay, an eau de parfum. So let us find out what Persolaise makes of this. Always a little bit nerve-wracking. What would the name even suggest? I have no idea what sort of perfume would be suggested by this name. It is Olivier Pescheux. He's made a lot for Diptyque, says Ashfaq. Yes, absolutely. Okay, here we go. Ooh. Oh gosh, okay. Suddenly I'm on a flight to Dubai. Oh, wouldn't that be nice though? Well, it would for me, I don't know. A flight actually anywhere would be nice at this stage. Ah, but the flight has suddenly just found that it's gone into a cloud made of soap bubbles. This is very curious. Now, the initial blast was definitely something that felt like it was going to go into resinous balsamic areas, and as you will all know, the initial blast of a perfume, as Jean-Claude Eleanor was always at pains to point out, one of the first things that you smell when you smell a perfume is actually the entirety of it. That's one of the weird things about how the nose detects perfume, I think, and how perfume operates. For a few seconds, you see the entirety of it, and then you actually start going top, etc. This is fascinating so far. I can't liken it to anything else that I've smelt lately because it seems to be doing a very, very hyper clean, almost fabric softener thing, but without seeming to be reliant excessively on synthetic musks. And yet there is the sweetness of balsams, maybe tonka bean. Really, and I'm just thinking soap bubbles, but soap bubbles descending onto a landscape of molten gold, which is not a bad image for a perfume, really. I wouldn't mind smelling of that. Hopefully not woody amber, says Ashfaq. No. Heard Orpheon shares similarities with Fleur de Peau, says Aperol Spritz, which I think was one of the ones that I never tried. Exit the King was very soapy on me, says Eric Brandon. No, but this is really florally soapy and also but also bubble mix soapy. Olfactophiles just tried this in a first impressions video this past week. Totally agree with your description. Oh, okay, good. Doesn't sound terribly interesting. It is, though, because you kind of want to think, well, what on earth is this? And it doesn't feel like it is of the earth. So, okay. Maybe this is where we're going. Maybe we're going to other realms. Maybe we're going to some strange parallel world where heaven meets hell. The forehead doesn't look too impressed. No, the forehead is intrigued. Intrigued is always good. Gosh, I would always take intrigued over pleasant. Is it aldehydic, says David? Possibly. Gino says, went to the Diptyque store here in Singapore and sprayed it on. Didn't think I would like it at first, but the whole day I kept getting wafts of it and it was stopping me in my tracks. I love it. Interesting. I think it's press release time. Let's take a look. Diptyque press releases tend to be quite wordy, quite detailed. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you because it is quite long. What's the very first, what's the opening though? Creation starts with an encounter. Diptyque is a collective, many elements, one entity. In the beginning were the founders, Desmond Knox-Leet, Yves Couslan, and Christian Gautreau, who invented it all. New skills have been added, new contributors brought on board. This is how, right from its inception, Diptyque has used its plural structure to become one of a kind. Okay. Gosh, there is a lot to read here. I wonder how we should just go straight into the heart of the matter. Let's go here. The Orpheon of the Imagination. To mark its 60th anniversary, the Maison has chosen to pay homage to this legendary background. I won't read about the background now because, trust me, it is too long. I'd be reading to you for about 20 minutes, I think. The atmosphere has been recreated, although since there is no one left who can personally recall these places, the key requirement was to reinvent them. Orpheon is an olfactory dream. Olivier Pescheux, a trusted friend, composed his formula like a tableau. The space itself, dominated by wood, coffee tables, armchairs, shelves behind the counter displaying, one imagines, a lineup of bottles and ice containers, the dance floor in the basement, and then in brackets they've said this is represented by cedar, vetiver, and patchouli. Okay, there is a hint of woodiness, certainly. I will read the whole press release before I write about this on the blog. The drinks, with a sharp note of juniper berries evoking the British spirit, served as a long drink with a slice of lemon, a drop of green tangerine, as in a gin fizz, and a few ice cubes. There is something bubbly, bracing, refreshing about it. The tobacco, which on certain evenings must have formed a sort of fog, at which no one took offence, it was a different time, is represented by the acrid accents of mastic and galbanum, along with the much smoother accents of honeycomb and rock rose like fine cigars or Amsterdamer pipe tobacco. Okay, I'm still on the soapiness, but, I did say woody, resinous, balsamic. We've got the scent of women, floral or powdery, but always complex and potent. Ylang ylang from the Comoros archipelago, magnolia from China, Turkish damascena, plus the indispensable disruptive surprise, a magnificent, vibrant absolute of Arabian jasmine, like a flash of lipstick in the half-light. Fair enough, but for a moment I thought you were reading a PR of a niche club. but the main thing here is that this is abstract. This is an abstract composition rather than something where you sort of pick out individual notes. The men, somewhat dandified and often in search of fresh conquests, smelling of musk or amber, but also of cigarettes. And finally, the lighting that accompanies the decor, a warm, subdued red on an accord of Venezuelan tonka bean and vanilla-flavoured Laotian benzoin. Ambroxan almost to excess, an addiction without risk. Okay, yeah, ambroxan for sure now they're saying it. Albeit not without a certain giddiness. In 4 words, fresh, floral, sensual, woody, and of course, gender-free. Now, that is a lot of description. And I think as consumers, we sort of want the description now to be a little bit more succinct, to actually say to us, okay, these are the main things we want you to hit on as you're smelling them. But I think actually this is a composition that you uncover. And you know what I'm thinking of now? It sounds like it's in the vein of Zing stylistically, says Eric. But Zing. Zing does become more overtly and more definitely one thing, doesn't it? I mean, okay, it's got the sawdust and the candy floss, but it then becomes quite an animalic leather, doesn't it? Whereas, and this may resolve into one thing. What it is making me think of is the new Hermès H24, because that also has a curious herbal, clean soapiness, and that's what this seems to be conveying. I'm intrigued. I am intrigued. Is there any more? Then there's about the bottle and the design. Orpheon, like all things Diptyque, can be seen as a 3-step waltz. Maison, perfumer, illustrator, a pattern that has endured for 60 years. And that's it. So I will have to go back and read what they're talking about, the background to it. But this is going to be one for the blotter update, I think. At the moment, it feels like it's going to resolve on floral fresh. I need to put my teeth back in today. Floral freshness rather than those darker, more smoke-filled descriptors that they were going for with their press release. Let's take a look at comments though, because I don't want to ignore what you have been saying. Druba says, I only said coral based on the name. To me, it reminds me of that Italian church with a golden altarpiece that is lit by light reflected from outside with a choir dressed in white. Oh, I don't know that one. Aperol Spritz, I was wishing for another white floral from Diptyque. Olfactophiles, I quite like it. It is interesting. Then we have a comment from Ashfaq. Gino says, it stayed on even till the next morning, so surprised how well it smells on skin than on paper. Okay, so, and as always, and I should say, for those of you who aren't aware, what I mean when I say that this is one for the blotter update, even though these episodes are about my first impressions of the perfumes, we mustn't ever come to a total, complete conclusion on a perfume based on a first impression, and so I give them time on the blotter, and after a few hours, usually the next day, I update the video description below and say this is how it developed on the blotter, and if I wore it on skin, I tell you how it developed on skin, and then I tend to add a little bit more on the blog as well. There was one comment that I just saw out of the corner of my eye, Ages ended one saying next to the 34 address, so he has Hermès 24, Diptyque 34, very good. Sparkly floral to me, says Udo Pantograph, almost aldehydic as well. Yeah, I'd go along with that. I'd go along with that one. Druba says, you're back on the church. Newbie7765, do intensely marketed descriptions trick our perceptions or colour our perceptions with slight bias on how the fragrance should be received? Yes, I think they do. I think the power of suggestion when it comes to smells, I mean, it has been proven to be a thing, to be real, which is why smelling perfumes blind is always interesting. You know, if this had been called something else, in our minds I may have already been set to smell it in a different way. That's why it is interesting to smell things on other people. It's interesting to smell things without knowing what they are. But I think you then also come round and look at the description that the brand has put forward or the name that the brand has chosen for the perfume and think, okay, does this fit in then? Am I actually am I detecting what they're trying to say in the scent? So it is a little bit circular, but absolutely, suggestion is huge. I mean, if you start looking into research on how people react to the exact same food, but if it's presented to them in different colors, they will actually think they're eating something different. Or if it's been cut up in a different way, so if it's been cut into circles or cut into triangles, they think they're eating different things. So we are in some ways enslaved by our senses and how we perceive things. Enrique says, tried this on skin briefly at a boutique a few months back and I felt it would make a fantastic bubble bath scent, but not sure about it as a perfume. Interesting, this bubble thing is coming up, isn't it? Lord Charfield, I have Oud Palawa by Diptyque, but love it so much that I'm afraid to try the others in case they're a disappointment. Well, I think on that note, we will leave it. Thanks very much for watching. There will definitely be a blotter update on this one. And if you're sticking around for the lives, I have got 3 new ones from Cartier. See you in a bit.